riding on board with Toprak Razgatlioglu. We picked him up in his area of the circuit into the braking zone through the Adelaide hairpin. We know that's where Toprak in particular is going to be looking to try and make his passes this weekend. Yeah,
Toprak loves turn 5, but he loves this type of corner as well. Slow corner, but you're braking on an angle. The Pirelli tyre lets you do that, but Toprak excels in that area. And then into this change of direction, then down in towards the Nürburgring chicane at 11-12. This is where you give yourself another opportunity for Toprak. And the reason that the opportunity presents itself is your speed through this corner, the left-hander, that then sets up your move down the inside into turn 13, the right-hander. And as long as you're committed to that inside line, like we've seen Toprak be a lot of times in the past, you'll create opportunities to overtake.
Watching him head down the hill here, as we've said previously, it's a largely flat area of the country, isn't it? But you see on the drop down towards the Lycée complex that there is some elevation change at very least here in Magny-Cours.
Yeah, and there's a big elevation change on the run from turn 3 up to turn 5. Anytime you walk the track or on the track, you feel that there's that steady gradient all the time. There's nothing that's particularly steep on it, but it's just a constant drag from this point where you see Toprak up towards turn 5, and then that also drops then away then at the rest of the track. So it's, at the end of the day, there's not anything where you look at it and you say there's a massive jump from the bottom point to the top point of the track. It's not like Aragon or Laguna Seca used to be, but there is that constant drag for the riders and the teams to have to deal with.
Yes, walk or run the track or drive the track in these conditions, because it's scorching out there, isn't it? Only the brave were running on Thursday afternoon here.
Yeah, there were a few, but brave, foolish, whatever you want to call them, and
I was being polite.
They were able to get the job done. A few people we saw out running the track yesterday, but it is a case of, in these conditions, 35 degrees air temperature now, 52 degrees track temperature. It's so difficult for the riders out there to find that grip. It's so difficult for them in the conditions to be consistent as well. So anyone that's able to keep themselves at the front of the field all the way through this weekend, they're really going some.
Interesting to watch this with the data and the gear changes as well, Steve, as we ride on board, I think, with Jonathan Ray.
Yeah, on board with Jonathan Ray, you can see how long you hold third gear through turn 1, 2, you're into 3 halfway through it. Now you're going to start shifting up through the gears, and you're going to take 4th. You're going to get yourself up to 6th gear on the run towards the Adelaide hairpin, and then you're going to come all the way down to 1st gear, the slowest corner on the track, slowest corner on the entire WorldSBK season, and that's where you create an overtaking opportunity. But you also create a pinch point on lap 1, and it really is difficult for the riders into that part of the track. But it is a case of, you've got to make sure that you're going to give yourself the opportunities to make moves, because there are opportunities around this track, but it's all where one corner flows into the next in this middle section of the lap, and it's about trying to just take that track position, take the high ground, and make sure you're able to come way in front. And that's where the likes of Toprak, Jonathan Ray, we've seen in the past, they've created their opportunities because they know the critical corners to try and then put your bike on the inside where it needs to be. So you'll see for Jonathan Ray in the course of the past where he's been very strong at this corner. Like I said, whenever we rode on board with Toprak, through that corner you've got to be able to set the move up in towards turn 13. That's where we saw him and Alvaro Bautista clash last year. It's also where, when you make that move, you could see there as we rode on board just how much that bike was skidding on the exit through there. It spins up through there because it's so difficult to find the drive through that section of the track, and then you've got to make sure you're able to defend the position into the end of the lap as well. So it's all 1st gear, 2nd gear corners at Magny-Cours, and it's about trying to generate that low speed grip.
Superb to be able to watch on board with the speeds and the gears of Jonathan Ray as he makes his way through. 1.5 minutes remaining in free practice 2.
Yeah, and it's also important to be able to see those few areas where they'll short shift to try and make sure that they're able to use the bike as best they can, so that they're not spinning it up at the top of the rev range. You can see on the exit of turn 13, it looked like Ray was just making sure he was taking that short shift from 2nd to 3rd, just to try and get down in towards turn 15 as efficiently as possible. A lot of the times the teams and the riders, because you've got a fixed gear shift, a fixed gear ratio for the season, your shift pattern for different tracks can leave it where you're not actually perfectly balanced all the way through. So there's some circuits where you're just at a natural handicap because the ratio you've chosen for the season, and that's where, when you make the rev changes for the season, like what we've seen this year, Kawasaki gaining revs, Ducati losing revs, it's actually more of a change that if you gain those reps, you can find the benefit of it more next season rather than this season. So that'll be one of the things that'll be interesting to see how it plays out over the course of the winter for the teams.
30 seconds remaining in free practice 2. Quick word on changes to the pecking order. Toprak Razgatlioglu setting a new personal best lap for the session, 1:37.1. So he's slotted between Gerloff and Bautista. Scott Redding with a new personal best moves into 5th. Good to see Xavi Vierge back in his pit box after this nasty incident earlier on in the session.
Yeah, and good to see that Xavi's smiling down there in the pit box. He wouldn't have been smiling straight after the crash, so hopefully we'll see that he's been able to get that bike repaired and he's fully fit tomorrow morning to be able to take part in free practice 3 and the rest of the weekend. But looks in good form there, looks in good spirits, so hopefully no issues there for Xavi.
Checkered flag has fallen. Doesn't look like anyone's on to a really improved lap. So it looks like being Rinaldi, Gerloff, Razgatlioglu, Bautista and Redding in your top 5 places. So strong effort from Rinaldi, from Gerloff in particular. He's going to be really pleased to have finished 2nd place in FP1 and 2nd place in FP2 as well. Sets himself up nicely for race day tomorrow.
Yeah, and race day comes thick and fast in WorldSBK, and for these riders, they know when they come out for free practice 3 tomorrow morning, it's about trying to make sure that you've got that bike into the right window for the Super Pole session, and then you've got to just make sure you hook up that lap. If you're able to do that, you'll qualify well, you give yourself a good opportunity for tomorrow's race. But tomorrow's race is going to be one of the toughest of the season. There's no real let up around this track for the riders. There's a lot of changes of direction, and in the hot conditions, it's really going to be a survival of the fittest out there, because you will churn through your Pirelli rubber if you push a bit too hard.
Yes, it's going to be a scorcher. I don't think there's too much doubt about that. Today's temperatures, well, we're 35 degrees out there, air temperature at the moment in free practice 2, 52 degrees track temperature, so startlingly hot for Magny-Cours in particular. Someone almost needs to go out and water some of those areas where the knee touches the grass, because it's dust being kicked up every lap. It's quite spectacular almost.